how you can create a great customer experience as well as delivering sales. Better financial literacy across the organization on a high level will also drive a lot of engagement, energy, and pride. When you work in silo, you always run into problems when you spend a lot of energy and time not achieving your goals or fighting the wrong fight. There's a key way of doing things. We all got a lot of responsibilities, being curious and open-minded and not scared about being a little bit slightly vulnerable or asking questions. The culture was profoundly built upon that you got this responsibility and you were allowed to make mistakes. And you should learn from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Pantrium podcast. Here, there's no fluff and no sales pitches, just real conversations. I'm your host, Christie Kristensen, and at Pantrium, we bring together bold, curious founders and leaders to share their stories, their lessons they have learned, and the hard truth behind their success. We are all about challenging the status quo and explore fresh perspectives while focusing on what really matters: people. If you're craving deeper conversations, you're in the right space. So let's dive in. Jenny, thank you so much for joining the Pantrium podcast. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I would love for you to share a fun fact about yourself.
Well, I love to cook and have a huge interest in that, and is collecting tons of cooking books, primarily also vintage cooking books. And right now I'm into a series of 70s vintage cooking books that I'm collecting. So I'm not maybe practicing all of it, but it's a huge interest of mine. So
Very cool.
That's my baby.
I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey and the challenges that you solve in your job?
I started out actually in when I studied in humanities because I was convinced that I wanted to be an archaeologist. That didn't turn out so well because it was a hard market at that time and probably now as well. So I switched into business and I moved to San Francisco and started to work for a branding agency called Interbrand. I work with various clients, primarily in retail and fast-moving consumer goods, stuff like that. But what I loved about that is that they have this very anthropological way of looking upon the consumer, human behaviors, how people relate to products, habits, their daily life in general. And during that time, I learned that actually I could use both my business skills as well as my anthropological skills from the humanities and merging those two into knowledges in branding and in marketing. So I stayed in that business for a couple of years. I moved to New York. I worked in a couple of advertising agencies. And then I moved back to Sweden, where I come from originally. I was not convinced that advertising was where I wanted to stay. I was more interested in sales, human behaviors, how you can create a great customer experience as well as delivering sales. So I got a job at Econo Bank in banking, completely new for me, but as a campaign manager, and learned the skills of digital marketing, sales, and also to create an end-to-end customer journey. It was a great experience, and I had a really great boss called Niklas Larsson. I'm still very much inspired by him because he really took this IKEA way of doing things to his heart, and we all got a lot of responsibilities and also very clear high goals. The culture was profoundly built upon that you got this responsibility and you were allowed to make mistakes, and you should learn from your mistakes. I think that is a great fundament for creating trust in your leadership and also trust among your colleagues and within a team, or also creating a great collaboration between teams and over departments. So that has been with my foundation when I have built teams or developing my own leadership or how I would like to work in general. So that was a great learning school. And then I moved into e-commerce, working more with retail, books and media and stuff like that. But I missed the tricky part that I like with banking, that it's the complex, it's to its essence quite simple. You're dealing with money, but there's a regulatory side, and there is also something sensitive with it. Last 20 years, I've been working with it, going from being a very old school traditional business to being super digital. I like that as well. For the last 10 years, I've been working with BNP Paribas Personal Finance. Started out with responsibility for Denmark and has lately been in charge of the Nordics for digital platform sales and marketing.
What has been some of the biggest challenge that you have overcome, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenge I've had is that when you work in silos, that is very common. It's for many times the obvious reasons. You have different KPIs in different departments, and you do everything you can to achieve those KPIs and those goals. Nothing strange with that. Sometimes it's completely contradictory when it comes to achieving something together as an organization or as a company. And that is one of those things that I have in many places, also not dependent on the business, not just in banking, also in other fields and industries. You always run into problems when you spend a lot of energy and time not achieving your goals or fighting the wrong fights, I would say. Because, of course, you as an organization is striving for a common goal. And it sometimes surprised me that we never learned a lesson that even if you keep individual goals in your department, that you have done it a little bit more technically advanced so that you can set up KPIs where you deliver something together. That is one lesson I've learned that is really hard if you don't have that. And of course, sometimes it's the structural problem when it comes to setting goals in a certain management style. But then I think it's even more important that you have a mindset where you really would like to build bridges between departments, get to know each other, understand each other's language, share knowledge, and ask questions and expose yourself to being slightly vulnerable and acknowledge that, you know what, I don't understand this. What does this mean? This line here in this financial report, I don't understand it. Can you explain it? Or if it's a technical platform you don't get, and how that is dependent on some other platform or whatever it might be. Many times you find that people actually would like to talk about what they do and their performance and how they are working to deliver upon their goals. And by understanding other people within your organization, it's easier, a little bit easier to at least overcome what is sometimes creating a lot of struggle and complexities when you have those different KPIs.
Yeah. Do you think that the KPIs that businesses focus on today are going to change?
Yes and no, to that extent that I think that there will be more KPIs that is going in the direction of sustainability, like having a sustainability focus, maybe on a more individual level, on department level. Could be different things, but I think that will come into the mix. But I always think that we will have a commercial aspect of our KPIs. We have to deliver value. We have to deliver a certain margin. That will probably be still central. But I definitely hope that when you look upon those type of KPIs, that you can maybe have more common set and then a subset for each department, so that you avoid the situation where you have maybe finance, risk, and commercial having completely different types of KPI that is not working to support each other, rather on the contrary, not supporting each other. And I think that is not so completely uncommon, whatever industry you're looking at. I think it could be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more curious when it comes to what KPIs can we actually have to build our business, to do creating better value, creating better organization, and to help each other do better work in general, and have, by that being more proud of what you do.
How have that curiosity helped drive cross collaboration across teams and a better understanding of what your neighbor is doing?
I think it's very important to understand your customer, and you can do that in various ways. I always try to be very active when it comes to co-listening, visiting customer service, reading feedback from customers, sending out different type of customer communication where you involve your customer, giving feedback, highs and lows, what do you like, what do you don't like, trying to bring that into your continuous development of your customer journey as much as you can. then it takes time. You should completely respect for that it takes time. I think in general that you could be much better of working with that type of customer feedback in a systematic way. Then it's working with complaints. But even if you do that, what do you do? What's the next step behind that? We have this obvious pain point. What could be a solution of that? And having a more structured way of involving more departments in working with those type of pain points and questions. In my experience, it's normally the commercial department or the marketing department together with maybe operations that is looking into that, having a very good visibility on this. But then it kind of stops. It's not that you're involving finance, is saying, okay, this is not working. So that is why this interest rate is going down in my world, or that is why this KPI in your world is not performing well. Or so I think that that could be done in a little bit more coherent way. And being curious. So more curiosity across the lines when it comes to understanding customer pain points, as well as passion points for that matter. So that you can also understand what you're doing good, because that's also important, I would say, to be curious about what are we actually doing good, because sometimes you walk around and you think, oh, this is not working, that is not working, everything is just falling apart. Many times that's not the case. Many times your customer actually think you're doing a great job, that your app is fantastic, or this services on your digital space is working quite good. I think it's important to embrace that, to feel both, acknowledge the pain point, be proud of the passion point, and being visible through your organization, no matter what department. Also, if it's legal, compliance, and sometimes it's in the marketing team and maybe somebody in operations that knows about this, but you're not like spreading the word and using it as drivers for change and growth and increased value to the company.
Do you follow a certain flow or process in order for you to stay curious?
I try to encourage as much as I can in my team to have that vision of how to work. I've been lucky to been in a department where we have for quite a long time a great standard of sharing stuff, highs and lows. I don't think there is a certain methodology or that I'm thinking about it in a specific way. I find it's very important to get out of the ordinary office space and then, you go to network, you bring that with you out in the world, and you dare to talk about your wins and your losses and what you find great and not so great with others in other industries or within your own industry, and to learn from others and share different views upon how to solve problems. I think it's important that if you stay on a path of being convinced, of being curious and open-minded, and not scared about being a little bit slightly vulnerable or asking questions, and you bring that to within your team, within your extended team, to a different department, to a different person in general, outside your own organization. I think you have a pretty good method of understanding that you're not alone in the questions you have or the challenges you have, and just acknowledging that can be very, very helpful in like actually being proud of what you do, because that's also an important side. There's always a room for improvement and seeing something new with new eyes.
Can you give us an example of that?
I think my favorite example would be when we created a new customer communication platform. We had a challenge that we have a very strong brand, and we have a couple of sub brands that are strong but a little bit different. So it was hard to find a way of working across the Nordics with one consumer brand with one voice. Two brands are coming with a little bit different set of customers and also different set of cultures within the organization. What I wanted to achieve was to find a platform for communication that we could use for both the brands to have a coherent way of communicating, but also a way of creating a stronger organization together across the Nordics with having a one voice and one way of looking upon how we would like to approach our customers, the customer journey and the customer experience in general. We were doing a very good job, but we didn't have a common voice of expressing this, or talking about this in the Nordic setup that we were working in, which was also new. So it was a lot of new things, and we had a lot of brands, and we wanted to find one voice, and it was a little bit tricky. But what we did was to make use of the people. We brought in people from all the Nordic countries to have workshops with a facilitator, in this case, the agency, where we looked into ourselves and asked little bit these types of questions. What are we proud of? What are we good at? What are our pain points? What are our passion points? And based upon the insights from our own experience of how we worked and how we would like to be perceived and what we were actually delivering to our customer, we were able to build a common platform for customer communication that then led to a more strategic communication how that we used in a commercial sense. And I think it was a great way of involving as many as you could in the organization, of creating something together, because it created a great foundation and something where you felt very involved in, and that you can actually use as a tool in your daily life. No matter where you were in the organization. Of course, it may be affected most the commercial parts and the operations, but it was still something where we stopped a little bit, okay, and asked ourselves, what are we good at? What can we be proud of? What would we bring up to the surface and really communicate to our customers? We took part of a lot of customer insights and customer interviews and brought that to the picture. And by looking upon all these aspects, we created something that was aligned with the clear reality, as well as something that we could all be proud of and live by with the heart. And that I was very proud of, that we managed to do that to the full extent.
Was there any surprises through that exercise?
I think that the big surprise for everybody that was involved in this project was that we came from two different organizational cultures, and we thought we had a lot of opinions about each other. Like the Danes thought something about the Swedes, who thought something about the Norwegians, the classic. But the interesting thing and what we all landed in, and it was not a surprise, but there were so many common things that we where we did a really great job, and also actually had very similar solutions to solving these problems. And when we realized that, it was way easier to overcome some obstacles when it came to cultural differences in problem solving or communication. To have that platform of have something of being proud of, I think that is the most important thing. And then you can have various solutions depending on what market you're on. And I think you have to respect that as well. But to have a common ground to stand on and be proud of that is essential to succeed.
Have that experience molded you or influenced you in the way that you think about breaking down silos today?
Yeah, it has, and maybe an even stronger enhancement on the fact that I mentioned in the beginning, that I'm a big believer in having leadership built upon trust. And I must admit that I have a tendency to be a little bit of a control freak. But bit by bit and by age and experience, I'm letting that go. And that is such a relief, because that is not helping anybody, and especially not yourself. I would say that doing this exercise, it really enhanced my opinion and my beliefs in that you have to build stuff on trust between departments, people, in the individual, not the least. Also, a little bit, let things go, There's multiple ways of solving things. And I think it's better that people are working and being proud of what they do, because that in itself is such an essential driver for both growth and success, and having a team that is having high energy and delivering good things.
Can you give some examples of where that has been a successful factor?
My goal with the commercial is to enhance the customer communication platform message I just talked about. I have a budget. I would like to keep it within that budget, but then I'm fine. I don't have a need to be in the nitty-gritty of the details. I think I'm sometimes a little bit too happy yes trigger, like, oh, this is a great commercial, let's go for this one. Where I have people in my team like, no, this is not good. The music is wrong, and that could be that is off, and in that stage the message is not really clear. They have to redo it. These things have to be questions, and blah, blah. And then I completely trust that person, that whatever feedback that is, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let's go with that. And giving sometimes maybe a lot of responsibility to individuals in your team when you know that person is obviously much better at this than you are, is one example. Where you have a vision, but you have no clue how to achieve that, but you have people in your team that can facilitate that. And then I think your role should be more of this is the goal we would like to achieve. We would like to understand this and that. And asking the questions to that person so that person can ask a question back to me and having a dialogue about it, but then go for a solution that will facilitate the goal. So I think how you create trust is probably to have the common goals and to ask questions, and then again let people do their thing and trust that they will do their best to solve the problem. I have very few examples when things have not worked out, actually.
And how does that also make you feel to now fully trust your team and enable them to ask questions? How have you felt that have helped you and changed the way that you're leading your teams today?
I would say I feel much more as a comfortable and solid leader than I did before, when I needed to have or had a tendency to wanted to control stuff. Now I know what I am in charge of controlling, and I'm controlling that. But there's multiple things in a marketing and sales department that you're not controlling. And by working this way, I feel stronger and better as a leader and can be more supportive and also develop skill sets among my team members, and being there as a mentor or coach better and more proficient extent than I did before. I think that's also the type of leader that I would like to continue to be and develop. It's also a great foundation if you wanted to or striving for having this cross-department solutions or functions, or I'm becoming more and more a big believer in setting up maybe teams that is working with tasks based upon the tasks rather than what the job description looks like. And if that's going to work, I think that is the type of leadership that has to be there, because then you have to have the trust. You have a certain set of talented, great people. They're supposed to solve something. They sit there with their special skill sets, and then you cannot. Then it should be facilitated by a leader that is trusting them, doing their thing, striving towards the goal, coaching, and so forth, instead of micromanaging in the details. Yep. I think it gives a lot of good energy to a team and an organization when you work across departments and you solve things together. I really like that energy and what it does to an organization. And again, mention the pride you can feel when you actually try to, or you deliver something together. And most of the time you do that when you have a great collaboration across departments.
What would you say is the one thing that leaders should think about when they're trying to facilitate cross collaboration?
Good question. First of all, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that people need to feel proud of what they do. They don't always have to be happy at work. You will never achieve that. But you can be proud of your deliveries, of what you do. You can be proud of what you do. You can be proud of what you do in a group, and not to underestimate that sense of belonging and feeling and energy that is created when you feel proud of what you do. Another thing is probably to be a little bit more curious when it comes to the capacity that people can have. Some skills are really set in stone, and you either can do them or not do them. When it comes to commercial IT and maybe processes and operation, you can go in and out of roles or share roles or switch roles, involve somebody from operation in the commercial team for a while because he or she knows an extensive amount about the customer experience or how the customer is reacting to a process you have or a product you have, to have a little bit more open mind about roles and what people and the capacity of people. And the third thing is to have a better understanding across the organization about where you are earning the money, to have an understanding of where you're creating value, what is a good business, what is not a good business, what customer, even if you could do a fluffy break between three major customer groups, where you're earning the money, where you're not earning the money. And then you can still love the little customer group that you have that is using this fun, hyped product that everybody loves, but you're not earning any money on it. So clear the skies. Here we're earning the money. Here we're not earning the money. Here we would like to earn the money because that's part of our vision. Everybody cannot be super financial literate and understand everything when it comes to the nitty-gritty part. But everybody can understand where you earn money, where you not earn money, and on a high level where you would like to go, because that's where you think you will earn money in the future, or what could be a strategic goal. So I think that a better financial literacy across the organization on a high level will also drive a lot of engagement, energy, and pride. Because there are tons of people in an organization that don't understand how you earn money. And I think that if you have a better understanding of that, you will also create involvement in a way more efficient way.
Mm. What would you advise a young leader who might not know where their commercial growth is within the organization, or where their wins are from and where they're probably losing? What would you advise them to do?
Ask questions. There is never a dumb question. There is a lot of questions not being asked, I would say, because there is maybe a too big anxiety when it comes to show off as having your act completely together and knowing a lot of things and having the answers to most of the question. And that's not the case. You will create a much more interesting organization and a much better leadership if you're taking the role as the person who dares to ask the question. And that could be difficult question. It can be pretty blunt question. It could be to some people probably a stupid question, but keep asking them, because there is never a stupid question. And it also shows that you're strong enough to ask that question. And that in itself, I would say, is something that you can show off any day. It's way worse to walk around, don't know the answer to some essential questions, because then you will drive your team, yourself, your leadership, and probably also the organization in a completely wrong direction.
And when we're starting to look ahead here at Pantrium, we love challenge people's viewpoints. What would you like to see changing in the industry?
I must go back to my passion point, which is the anthropological side of looking upon business and truly understand how people relate to money, truly understand their pain points and passion points, and to really dig into that thick data of how people think about this. Because I think it's always a little bit too easy answers. It could be, it should be convenient. It should be easy to understand. We're here for you in your daily life. Yeah, okay, that sounds all great. But do you really understand that relationship that customer have with money? Either if they have it or they don't have it, there is a super strong emotional bond to money. I haven't seen one bank who's actually has been dwelling upon that, exploring that, using that, discussing it. Just talk about everything else but that. And it could be extra interesting to see that explored with some tech glasses on to see what type of technological solutions you can have for addressing that. I don't definitely not have the answer, but to use that aspect of thinking about your business is a untapped possibility.
Why do you think that we don't see banks moving in that direction today?
I think we have had a fairly traditional view upon what people we need in a bank. It's getting better, but I think that if we would welcome people with humanities background or design background, all types of aspects could be super interesting in order to address the different aspects of banking. And of course, you always need some hardcore skills, but that's easier to identify. But to create something new in banking, I think that you should widen your scope and to maybe be more curious. And there are a few banks, at least, who have those type of profiles in their organizational mix.
And when we look at people who challenge our views and inspire us, who are you following these days?
I've been a very long time a big fan of a Danish agency called Red Associates. I think they're doing a marvelous job using this anthropological perspective on business challenges. They also, when it comes to linking together different views upon human beings, consumers, and business behaviors, and how you can get new insights by working with different aspects of consumer insights, consumer experience. Also, especially if you can find aspects of where the world is going in a little bit more macroeconomic level.
What do you think will define the next 5 years in this sector?
I think AI will be used a lot. I think that we will probably be pretty good at using that in a smart way, officiating the operations team, commercial teams, not to mention the analytics team, using human skill sets to better in more important tasks than they do sometimes now. So that is one big thing. I also think that we will continue to have a strong perspective and focus on customer experience and consumer insights, and using more and better digital devices to get those insights. I also find it interesting to follow the new generations and their relationship to banks and to financial services in general. It will be interesting to see the development of fintechs and different platforms and how they coexist with traditional banks. Because I think in general, there is a different type of both mentality and, of course, usage of digital platform, digital media among younger generations, if we call them that. That will, of course, affect how we work in the banking industry. So that will be super interesting to follow as well.
And as we wrap up, what would you say is a leader that have left a lasting impression on you?
It is my boss, Niklas, at the Bank, who taught me the importance of trust and taught me the importance of it's totally okay to make mistakes.
That's really good. So insightful. And I have really enjoyed our conversation, Jenny. We could talk hours.
Probably.
Yes. And I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on to the Pantrium podcast. And again, I thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you very much, Christie. It's great to be with you today.
If this episode gave you something to think about, I'll be really grateful if you could share this with your LinkedIn network. And to make sure you don't miss out on any new episodes, simply follow Pantrium wherever you are listening or watching. And just a note, the opinions and views shared by our guests are entirely their own and don't necessarily represent the businesses they work for. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, bye for now.